Alice Through the Multiverse. The Old Man at the Lighthouse. Chapter 9. Anae took Alice to see the lighthouse and its guardian, Astrozara, known as the Old Man of the Lighthouse. When the old man saw the girls approaching the entrance, he pressed a button to open the electronic door. "Well, if it isn't the children. Welcome, welcome." "Thank you, Astrozara." "Thank you," said Anae. "But who is the girl with the cat?" "I'm Alice from Cosmopolis." "Alice from where?" "She's new to the shelter," said Anae. The old man looked at Alice, lifted her hair, looked at her ears, and said, "Wait a minute, but you're not an child. She got lost in the forest and Tour brought her to the shelter," explained Anae, the ocelot girl. "Yes. I'm not from here, I came from Cosmopolis." "Cosmopolis, huh?" Astrozara tried to remember the kingdom mentioned by Alice, reflexively scratching his beard. Seeing that he couldn't remember, he cleverly changed the subject. "Girls, I just made some tea. It's warm, who would like a mug of my precious tea?" Both accepted a mug of tea offered by the old man. At the lighthouse, while Alice was drinking her tea, she noticed a picture on the wall, which caught her attention because of the phrases contained in the text. The 10 Counsels of the Ancient Scientist. First, seek and share knowledge. Second, do not use knowledge for improper ends. Third, care for and protect living beings. Fourth, live every second until the final transition. Fifth, we are all equal, man should not enslave man. Sixth, undead and respect differences. Seventh, do not use negationism against knowledge. Eighth, be empathetic towards your neighbor. Ninth, respect your progenitors, elevating ancestral wisdom. 10th, never subtract for yourself, goods of others. Alice asked Astrozara a question. "Mr. Astrozara, is there a limit to the number of time cycles for staying at the transition house?" Astrozara replied, "My dear, is there a time limit for anything?" Astrozara, the old man at the lighthouse, was 90 years old. The time limit for time cycles was 80 years. From then on, every citizen had the right to retire to the transition house, not on a mandatory basis, but on an optional basis. They only had to register.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
Very well. Thank you.
That's great. Here is your water.
The transition house was a welcoming home where people lived in dignity and serenity until their final transition. It was a model of a sophisticated establishment, highly adapted for people of a certain age, adopted by the 4 kingdoms in agreement with the Quadrangular Council to receive this age group. It was located in the city of Lysandrina in the Northern Kingdom. "So you've been the lighthouse keeper for a long time?" asked little Alice. Astrozara lit a pipe, took a puff, and began to speak. "My child, I have been the lighthouse keeper since I was 20 years old. The cycles of life consist of being born, living, and making the final transition. No one lives forever." The old man at the lighthouse paused for a long puff on his pipe, and then continued speaking. "My child, I have been the guardian of the lighthouse since I was 20 years old. The cycles of life consist of being born, living, and making the final transition. No one lives forever." The old man at the lighthouse paused for a long puff on his pipe, and then continued speaking. "Live every second until the final transition. As you can see in the 4th piece of advice, I have chosen to face time as well as the nullity of life. It so happens that I do not wish for my annihilated matter to return to the bosom of a nebula by means of atomic disposal in a morphic neutralization chamber, such as the one that exists in the transition house. And above all, I do not wish to prolong the cycle of life in a spa for the elderly. It would be very boring for me. I prefer to face my destiny head-on, without protective nets. Time lasts long enough for those who know how to enjoy it. That is why I chose this beautiful lighthouse as my transition house and the corner of my finitude. Here, I work and reflect on the passage of the right struggle, my adorable little children. Thus spoke Astrozara, the guardian of the lighthouse. Alice said she understood and respected his decision. They thanked him for his hospitality and promised to return another day to have tea and talk with the great Astrozara, the guardian of the lighthouse.
Thank you for the tea.
It was delicious.
I'm glad you liked it. Now, it's a pleasure to talk with you all.
When the two girls returned to the beach, they noticed a crowd gathered around a shapeless mass. Alice was frightened and said, "Look, that. It looks like a monster." Anae laughed and said, "Alice, stop imagining nonsense. Don't you know the saying by the philosopher Callistrato de Lucidora that says, 'Fantasy becomes mythology'?" As they approached the shapeless mass, they realized that it was a stranded orca that the children were trying to rescue. They joined the group to push the animal back into the sea, and with great effort they managed to free it. It was a baby orca that was returned to the whale pool. Alice swam and played with the children. They were accepting Alice as one of the children. This was very rare among them, for some still carry traumatic remnants in their interaction with so-called normal humans. At the end of the afternoon, everyone got ready to end the trip to the beach. By the lighthouse, taking one last dip and catching tatui on the beach for dinner, as they loved fried tatui. They were sad to return to the shelter, but none of them complained, as they had been taught to fulfill their obligations and be responsible. They began to dismantle the tents and pack up everything else to continue their journey back to the usual shelter. But Alice was worried because she couldn't find her pet cat until she reached the last tent that was still set up and saw Ikana drying the cat with a pet dryer brush. Alice thanked her because, after all, she was beginning to get to know a little more about the personality of the sullen girl who was actually proving to be a lovely friend. Rayoni and Pora repeated the same procedure for the return trip. They sent the women and children first. When everyone got into the car, he started the engine and headed for the usual shelter. In a few minutes, the flying car was flying over the vicinity of the complex, and as they approached their destination, the children spotted Professor Hypatia's Van Drone. They became excited, shouting in unison, "The professor has arrived! The professor has arrived!"